All right, we're live here with Alec Taub from Cygnus Studios. Uh, Alec, please introduce yourself and thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Yeah, my name's Alec Taub. I'm from Cygnus Studios. I'm the project manager. But with being a small indie developer, it's not just project manager. It's anything from PR to marketing to even today, I've been working in Blender all day. So graphic art or music as well.
Yeah. Oh, I totally get that. Wearing lots of hats. Tell everybody a
Oh
little
yeah.
bit about your project, people who don't know, the Cygnus Racing League.
Yeah, so Cygnus Racing League right now is available on the App Store. It is a classic arcade style battle royale where you are put into a ship against 50 other ships on a track with the inherent goal of scoring the most points, either through blowing up your opponents or finishing the most laps. So whatever suits your fancy.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. I have it on my phone. It really gives me, it took me all the way back to kind of a cross between the early racing games and the style, but also like a battle in Mario Kart, that kind of thing. I mean, there was just so much fun to it. And what I really love is the aesthetic. I mean, from the music to the look to the, I mean, it's all working together. It feels like it hits me right in the nostalgia. So yeah, couldn't recommend it more. I hope people go out and pick it up today. Um, yeah, so what got you into the idea of making Cygnus Racing League? How did that all start?
Well, actually, so it started with my brother. He got his degree in computer sciences from UC Davis, and he
Hmm.
was kind of looking for something to start after college. And
Yeah.
so he started actually building a game engine for a kind of a No Man's Sky type concept,
Hmm.
and asked if I would want to be a part of it. And of course, being an avid gamer for most of my life, I was all in. So when we started working on the project, we sort of discovered that, unfortunately, being an indie studio, we don't exactly have the resources of, some of these other bigger companies. So and not only that, it was our first project. So taking on something of a No Man's Sky, we kind of realized was a bit too much. So we decided to instead kind of focus on a smaller project that we could build into our universe. So with Cygnus Racing League, there's aspects of it that either there's a little bit of narrative in there that you can tell sort of describes a bigger universe at large. And so our goal is to hopefully build games that sort of build up that universe. And as we get more competent building games and hopefully gather more resources, that we can kind of come back to that original concept of building that sort of big open world game in the No Man's Sky vein.
That's brilliant. I love that plan, and it's actually very much similar to what we did. When I got started in the industry with Dynasty 11, we had this idea for a science fiction action adventure game, narrative focused storytelling, that kind of thing. And so I
Mm-hmm.
I worked on it for a while, built up a big pitch, and I actually pitched it at E3 in 2017 to a major console manufacturer. And
Mm-hmm.
the pitch went well in that the subject matter was well received, but not so much in us having the capacity to build it. So exactly like you're saying, it was kind of like, okay, nice idea, and we'll help you publish it later on, but how do we get from A to Z there? You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
so that's where Player Two came, as we started thinking about what are some of the problems that we felt as a studio. We're in the as far as connectivity and matchmaking and that kind of thing. And how could we solve them? And so that's where Player Two was born out of, but very similar in our methodology to you. And I just love the way you're seeding the future with that universe building. I think that's brilliant. Awesome.
Yeah, we take huge influence from a lot of classic sci-fi, so things like Star Wars and Star Trek, and
Oh,
I think I think definitely the beauty of those universes is they're so deep. There's so
yeah.
many different layers, and they offer so much for so many people. To We want to offer something similar, especially in the gaming verse. We know that there is definitely a demand for open world space exploration adventure games, and to try to build something in that vein for us is really, really important. And of course, it starts with having to actually build a universe for it. So I think definitely trying to take this approach, maybe as I said, getting our feet wet into building smaller projects to hopefully working our way up to something bigger, I think is probably the best way for us to not only universe build, but as I said, to prepare us to build something like that as well.
Fantastic. I mean, I love the plan. It seems so well thought out. I can't wait to see how it unfolds. There's part of running a business beyond planning and, inspiration for ideas is just the execution, the X's and O's. And, maybe talk a little bit about, what kinds of things have you run into, obstacles along the way? Obviously, COVID's forefront in everybody's mind in this past year. But, what kind of obstacles have you faced as an indie developer, and how have you, tried to stare them down and keep going?
Yeah, definitely the biggest obstacle that we faced is reach. Obviously, as I said, being an indie developer, we don't have the resources of, like a CD Project Red or,
Oh yeah.
an EA or something. And, with those bigger companies, their reach is massive. So for an indie developer, typically you build your reach through not only social media, but going to games cons and games events. And with COVID, that has been almost virtually impossible.
Yeah.
So for us, it has been trying to take advantage of making as many connections as possible within our community, whether it's with other app developers, other studios, to see if we can make connections to where we could, tap into their audience as well as tapping into ours, and just kind of coming together collectively as a community to sort of help build each other up. Because yeah, with COVID, it has made even something that is as simple as this pretty impossible.
True, but here we are, to your
Yeah,
point about
exactly.
supporting each other. I mean, I love the indie game community. I think there's a lot of people, a lot of great ideas, and there's a lot of we're in this together, that kind of sentiment. And I really appreciated that. And that's something actually we wanted to channel into the app. It wasn't something we initially thought of. We were thinking more along the lines of matchmaking and, small communities or one-to-one. But when we started figuring out some of the more, details about the community support, we started figuring out how to support indie developers. And to your point, whether it's a time like COVID or if it's just, the huge disparity in resources between the big players and an indie developer, we want to try and provide a little bit of level playing field, and a different way for people to access games like yours and some of the other guests we're having as part of this event. Again, we're so thankful to have you and to help us sort of grow that infrastructure, you know what I mean, of indie developers and cross promotion and support, and we're all on the way up together.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why we're thankful for apps like yours as well, because again, it's giving us another platform to hopefully build a community.
Yeah.
I think most games that are good are because half of it is the community that helps build it.
Yes.
And that's the beauty of being an indie developer is there's so much less between you and your community that you're able to really tailor to that community. And I know some of the features I was going through in Ready Player 2 or with the Player 2 app was the accessibility between the community and the developer is really, really important to us. And
yeah,
y'all offer a great opportunity to do that, where we can have a great dialogue with our community to help build a game that they want. I think being what your players want out of their game as well, to knock down as many barriers as possible to help create that is awesome.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And just so you know, I lost you for, I don't know, maybe 10 seconds in the middle there. But I think we got the beginning and the end of it in that, the paraphrasing sense of trying to remove as many barriers as possible, in connecting directly to the consumer, and that being an advantage for indie developers, when you don't have, boards and, publishers and layers and layers of people over your head. Hopefully that lets you access a different level of, authenticity, of creativity, of, almost agency over what you can produce to, to your fans. So yeah, as much as we can empower that as possible, that's one of Player Two's primary goals, to provide that service. So I couldn't be happier to see that reaction, from someone who hopefully will, be using the app. We talked about it a little bit about how indies can support each other. And, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about, how you see the industry evolving over the next several years. I mean, if you look back, we've got these major players, your Nintendo's, your Microsoft, Sony, the Steam, on PC, and you see the major players, but then there's this enormous volume of indie developers, of people coming up. They want to take their own shot, express their own ideas. Maybe they don't want to work up through the ladder, the corporate ladder for 10, 20 years and then find their way. So, what would you look for in a platform? And this is a question I pose to anybody who follows Player 2, is that, it's supposed to be an ever evolving solution. We're here for your ideas. Tell me what you need, what you would like to see, to help embolden indie developers and support their products.
Yeah, that's a good question. Um, as far as like what developers I think are really looking for in an app like yours is kind of like what I was saying earlier, is the kind of the less barriers that we have connecting to a community at large helps a lot. But I think not only just connecting to community members, but also connecting to other indie developers. We talked about how strong the indie community is and how much it really wants to not only push their own games, but also help yours. And I think being able to connect to other indie companies is so important, just for not only advice that they can offer, but as well as a sharing of resources. I know that we have teamed up with a writer who is thinking about employing us for creating an app or a tabletop app for a tabletop RPG idea that he has. And we wouldn't have had that opportunity had we not connected through social media or various other platforms. And so I think, what Player 2 offers definitely in that regard of not only connecting to your community, but also connecting to the indie community at large. And I think your desire to sort of foster that indie community is really, really important to us. So it's definitely something that we want to focus on, not only because of just connecting to other indie developers, but also seeing what other indie developers are doing. I think the indie scene is just awesome. The technology that we have at our fingertips is more accessible than it's ever been, and is giving people so many opportunities to build these really, really great projects. And definitely seeing other people's projects inspires your own projects to want to see how you can push your technology to the max to get the most out of your ideas as well. So I think that's sort of the big thing for us, is how can we not only connect to other communities, but how we can also connect to other indie developers to sort of keep the cycle going of having the motivation and seeing the inspiration that other developers are creating, but also being able to connect to these other communities to help create the best possible gaming experience.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. I think video games already have sort of a rap about their place, their substance in society. You know what I mean? And to be an indie developer on top of that, it's like, oh, isn't that nice? But like, wow, you're really going for it. And I think the gaming industry is really still very young. If you're looking at film and TV being over 100 years old, or written stories or the spoken word millennia old, games are only the people who were originally in the industry, some of them are still in it. You know what I mean? I think we're in a period where the industry is constantly evolving and evolving so much. And I think over the next few years, you're going to see indie developers sort of shake the stigma. You know what I mean? I think we're entering a much more diverse and empowered marketplace where, just like you said, your idea inspires the next person, it elevates all of us. And I think as many doors as we can open in that regard, then we're doing our job. So fantastic. You're reaffirming all my excitement about what the app can do, and to see, how indie developers do, but B, what more suggestions they have for us too. Because like I said, we're always looking to grow and learn and reassess what we're doing. And so it's sort of a stay tuned and see what's next sort of attitude, Yeah, fantastic. So I think the last thing I wanted to ask is if you want to tell us any more about Cygnus Racing League, if you want to talk any more about anything you might have coming up, if you have any other updates. Recently, you were talking about coming to PC, and I looked at the graphic updates you posted, and it definitely got me excited. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about that.
Oh, we are so excited to move to PC. When we started out, because the way I also got into game development was I was originally going to get my PhD in video game research.
Wow.
I took a class that was offered at UCSB that was about video game research just in general. And that class was phenomenal because it not only taught us about, how research is looked at at video games, but also how video game development sort of occurs. And so when we originally started our first project, the professor of that class, we talked to him about some advice that maybe he would have about getting into the industry. And he said, start with mobile. And so we started with mobile. And mobile's great. Mobile is awesome because of the reach that it has. It's a growing market. You
Yeah.
know, it gives you a lot of flexibility as far as what you're able to create and do. And it's fun making mobile games, but PC is where our heart is. And so now to come back to PC where we can really crank the graphics up and we can really crank up basically everything up to 10 as far as the physics and everything that we're interacting with is just really, really exciting for us. And I think the entire gaming experience is going to be totally different on PC as opposed to mobile. It's nice to have sort of the arcadish feel, the classic arcadish feel to it, but we're definitely going to be adding in a whole lot of features to hopefully improve sort of the entire playability of the game as a whole, while still maintaining that classic arcade feel. So for us, just coming over to PC, and then of course we're also coming over to Android and Switch as well, with ports afterwards.
Awesome.
We're really excited just to be continually developing this through updates, and again, you know, through your app as well as social media and all the other community things that we're doing to try to reach people. It's, you know, having that connection to people and being able to also adapt on the fly is really, really important to us over the next couple of months, because, you know, the more that we talk to our community and the more that they want to see out of our games, that's what we're here to produce.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, we can't wait to play our part in supporting you and other indie devs developers just like you. So I just want to thank you so much for being here. And it was such a pleasure to talk to you. Hopefully we'll catch up with you soon. Just one more time, this is Alec Taub from Cygnus Studios. Please check out their app, Cygnus League Racing. Fantastic. Couldn't recommend it more on iOS. And stay tuned for more developments from them in the near future. Thank you so much, Alec.